Well, good afternoon and welcome back to our show, People Are Our Economy, where every other Thursday we bring you stories of real people who really are our economy. We'll also continue to update you on the triple crisis that COVID-19 has created for our health, our economy, and our democracy. Today, we see headlines that 36 million unemployment claims have been filed over the past 2 months. The Federal Reserve Bank chairman said yesterday that he believes 40% of workers earning under $40,000 per year have been laid off. This is absolutely unprecedented. We know that people are our economy, and that's why this show is here to explore from different lived experiences what the people of our economy are experiencing and how we can stand together to demand relief. Now, this week, we want to make space for an important part of this crisis, a pending case that adds many layers of uncertainty in this moment for at least 700,000 of our neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Right now, we're waiting for the Supreme Court to announce their decision on what will become of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA. DACA is a testament to youth organizing. It remains the single most successful immigration victory the nation has seen in recent years, creating policy that secures dignity for immigrants instead of attacking immigrant communities. Now, of course, this hard-won victory during the Obama years was a target of the Trump administration. The Department of Homeland Security declared an end to the program in September 2017. Last fall, the case was brought to the Supreme Court to decide if DHS's rescinding of DACA was lawful or not. Under normal circumstances, we would be fighting for a decision to reinstate DACA. But now, because of the danger of COVID-19, we are also fighting for a delay to this decision altogether. Especially because of this pandemic, we repeat, no one should have to worry about losing their work permits and work protections from deportations. No one should have to worry about losing their jobs or their health care. The Supreme Court decision impacts more than just immigrants. Nearly 256,000 U.S. citizen children have at least one parent who is a DACA recipient. And across the country, 1.5 million individuals live with a DACA recipient. When we look a little bit closer, we see that about 30,000 DACA holders are working in the healthcare system, providing critical care to those combating COVID-19. That is in addition to the hundreds of thousands of essential workers in other industries that continue to keep us safe and cared for. So we're not here to speculate on what the Supreme Court will decide or what kind of legal bases the judges will build their opinion on. We're here today to continue to organize through the power of raising our voices and standing together. We hope today's show will help our viewers know you are not alone, and there are actions we can each take right now to make lasting change. Community Change Action and all our partners stand with the more than 700,000 undocumented youth and all immigrant families, regardless of status. We are fighting for a roadmap to freedom that once and for all declares home is here. So joining me today are two organizers who have been navigating this road of uncertainty and still building power from the ground up. They are part of our Community Change Action family, and I'm so grateful they are joining me today. Isaias Guerrero is Community Change Action's Southern Region organizer and a leader in the fair immigration reform movement. He has been an energetic anchor for our immigration work and was part of the march last fall with dozens of other leaders from New York City all the way to the steps of the Supreme Court. This is one of the many moments Isaias shared during his endurance with us, speaking truth to power, and I hope he will share one of his very electric chants with us during today's show. Bartosz Kumar is our Relational Voter Program Manager for Community Change Action. He is helping our communities find their voices in our political process. Bartosz has been part of our country since he was 10 years old and was caught in limbo when his student visa and work permits expired after graduating from law school. The DACA program helped him establish his life with less fear. And even though he cannot vote himself, Bartosz continues to bring thousands of new voters to our movement, for which we want to celebrate and learn more about. So welcome to the show, both of you, Isaias and Bartosz.
Thank you, Dorian. Great to be here with you.
So,
thank you, Dorian.
Let's begin with a little bit more about you. So my notes that I just shared barely even start to describe who you both are. So I want you both to introduce yourself to our audience, and if you can, share with us what brought you to this movement. So we'll start with Bartosz.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. So I came here when I was 10, from Poland, and It was always just like a feeling that here was home. Here being for me, Detroit, Michigan, for almost all the time I've lived in the U.S. Although there are a lot of special parts of the country that really have a place in my heart. Yeah, I mean, it was like I spent a summer here, and then at some point, I just knew that I was never going back. That this is where my friends are. This is where my family, my adopted family, in a lot of ways, are. And what brought me to the movement, I think, is a couple things. Part of it is, frankly, I think of every time I see, a border patrol car driving behind me, or even like in proximity to me. I live in Detroit, so we're on the Canadian border and see like a lot of border patrol. Every time I see that, or really any kind of law enforcement, my heart just like jumps right into my heart. It's this feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen next. And that's even right now while having DACA. And that was a much worse feeling before I had it. So part of it is, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know if I'm ever going to be in a deportation fight to stay here, to stay with the people that I love, the people that I care about. And a big part of why I'm in the movement is frankly, because if it comes to that, I want to know that I have people who will stand up for me, fight for me, in any other universe than the quarantine universe we're in right now. Take to the streets for me, make calls to Congress, and write letters, and get me free. And then the other part of it is, I can't vote and I can't run for office, and those are both things I desperately would want to do if I could. So the closest I get to having a real voice in our political process is by being active in our movement. So that's a bit of it in a nutshell.
Bartosz, I can't help but interjecting here before I bring in Isaias, because something you said in your story really resonated with me very deeply, and that's the notion of seeing a patrol car. And in my case, my family actually migrated from the South, escaping Jim Crow terror, to the north, to Chicago. And at an early age, I always was very, very aware of any police car. And especially by the time I was a teenager, one of my best friends in high school was a survivor of police brutality when I was 16. And ever since, I've been very, very aware of. It's partly one of the reasons why I got in the movement was around police brutality. And of course, in the wake of Ahmaud Arbery's murder by vigilante, three white men in Georgia last week. It's very much on all of our minds. So I just wanted to make that link, right, in terms of our linked fates and struggles in this moment. Yeah. I just want to point out that resonated with me. Isaias, please tell us about you.
All right. Well, it was great hearing from you, Bartosz. Thank you for sharing that part of your story. Well, I'll just share. For me, movement is in a way partly what saved my life, what helped me find my vocation in life. So I migrated with my family from Colombia in 2000 when I was 15. We were coming because of economic uncertainty back in Colombia, because of the armed conflict. There was very high unemployment at the time. My dad got unemployed. And he first came to live with a cousin. He was sending us money, but it wasn't enough. So we ended up coming to the south side of Indianapolis, also Midwest. Shout out for all my people in the Midwest. A small area, very industrial. My dad was assembling radios. And we came. I didn't know I was undocumented up until, I was having to drive. I couldn't drive, so I was riding my bike everywhere. And then really, I felt it when somebody in my family, I also saw the police come into my house and take somebody dear from my house, from my home, and actually put this person behind bars. And ever since then, I knew that this person could have gotten deported, and I had nobody to turn into. So we had to fight this deportation in a very quiet manner. I didn't tell anybody when I was going through this in my school. And so I had to carry all this within me. I remember just like not knowing how to explain it to my two sisters, and just carrying it all by myself just seemed very hard. I became also like a provider in my family. I had to work. I was working at a fast food restaurant, and that kind of really helped me understand how precarious our lives were and how easily it was for our bodies and our people and our loved ones to disappear. And so it was really when I met other undocumented youth, when I started sharing my story, that we started connecting not only in Indianapolis with other undocumented youth, but then nationwide. And that's when I was feeling like I wasn't alone, like there was so many other undocumented young people organizing across, and it felt like I was actually part of a bigger family fighting for in that point was the DREAM Act. We met with Senator Lugar, who was co-sponsor in Indiana, and that's when we understood, hey, even though we don't have papers, we do sit-ins, we walk from Miami to DC, we can do civil disobedience, we can do calls, we can do all sorts of things that in a way embody citizenship, and that even though we weren't recognized by this country by being citizens, we could use what being an active citizen means to actually transform and guide this democracy towards the values of justice and freedom for all of our undocumented, beautiful people out there. And so that's why I think I'm so in love with this movement, because I think we've created a space where we've really been able to use the tools towards liberation. And so that's why I'm so grateful to be part of this movement family.
Thanks to you both for that. I know that we've been framing this conversation thus far around the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty that comes with this moment. And it's palpable, it's tangible. But I'm wondering if we can let our imagination stretch just a bit. And so I'm going to ask you both, what kind of opportunity do we have in front of us? What kind of organizing opportunity do we have in front of us? And talk to us about how you've created ways to stay hopeful and to build power in this moment. Bartosz, let's start with you.
Yeah, the hope right now is such, it's so materially key to survival for myself. That anxiety you named is very real. The anxiety, the uncertainty, without hope, it like spirals quickly into depression and everything else. And so I'm fortunate to have a really, really beautiful circle of friends that are close to me and like take care of me emotionally in a way that is just so filling. And it also, that means that the stakes are high, right? Losing those folks, losing my connection to the people closest to me, which like virtually almost all of the people that are closest to me live in the United States, maybe in Detroit, maybe somewhere else, but like here, means that I and all 1 million of us have to fight. And so, there's the DACA recipient in me that every time we're on the verge of potentially a Supreme Court ruling every few days, that's feeling the fear. But there is the organizer side of me that's like, this is the moment where we can galvanize our movement and bring the fight to them, because there's 1 million of us, and 1 million of us can get millions of people who can vote to vote. And I want to wake those voices up. I want to wake up the sleeping giant that is like our friends and family who might not show up, but maybe they will if we can touch them. And yeah, I think that the people who care about us don't want to lose us and are going to fight like hell if it comes to it.
Isa.
Yeah, I love that. I think I feel like this is a moment where we're in this like moral dilemma, no, of which side, which road do we want to be in. And we know that these 4 past years have been a road that have created this like rip in our social fabric that has brought so much hurt. And to think of the aspiration of this country, and to know that we're getting far away, then I think of how to get closer to this idea of again, liberation and justice for everyone. And so I think that the way to do that is really to like show the beautiful faces of our people, right? Like we're seeing how our people are starting to hustle by creating face masks. Somebody here in DC is she's creating her own face masks and selling them. Ladies that are selling tamales in Colorado, and actually like trying to keep that living forward. And then from that individual to level to then seeing how our organizations are pushing for our people to be included in relief packages. Like we're transforming the way in which elected officials are thinking about how to provide support for all of the people that are in need in this moment. So we're seeing worker relief funds that are in Oregon, for example, that are including everybody regardless of immigration status. And our San Antonio just got out like 25 million that will include undocumented people. And so I feel like by the small ways in which we're showing how immigrants are moving power, we're highlighting that not only we want inclusion for undocumented people, but really for all of the working class, Black and brown and white folks that are really breaking their backs and their health to maintain this economy going. And so I think this sense of unity and that we are starting to create by saying we are all essential, and like not only like definitely pushing for an economic, but really like a moral inclusion in our policies is so important. And so I think that's really what we got to embody, is this importance that it's either all of us or none of us, and that we can't be having politicians especially divide us and exclude undocumented folks in policies, but make sure that we recognize that those that are really carrying the economy are the ones that are doing the hardest jobs, whether it's in the hospitals, whether it's cleaning, whether it's in the restaurants. And so those are the folks whose stories we have to uplift to continue making sure that we get closer to those values that are in the heart of this country, I think.
I want to remind our viewers of an important point. I've been in conversations with the previous leader of community change, Deepak Bhargava, who reminds us that what's been happening with the Trump administration is not only cruel in terms of its actions towards immigrants, but strategic and very political. So if you think of Stephen Miller in the White House and the role he has played since he arrived in 2017, it really is an attack on the power of Black, brown, and immigrant communities. So if you go back to the mid-'60s, at the height of the Black freedom movement, the victories we often name there, the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, what's often left out is the 65 Immigration Reform Act. And both the 65 Voting Rights Act and the 65 Immigration and Naturalization Act really created an opening for the diversification of America, if you will. And it sped along the process of us becoming a majority people of color country. And to me, that is precisely the strategic attacks from the right, and particularly from this administration, on Black people and the right to vote, and on immigrants and immigrant families in terms of stopping the transition to a fully multiracial democracy. So I'm wondering, given that context, because I heard some glimmers of hope from both of you in your stories, and I hope, by the way, our viewers can feel less alone in this time of physical distancing. That said, I want to come back to you, Bartosz, and find some ways out of the predicament in which we're in, right? How can we continue to strengthen the social connections between us, and frankly, stop the Trump policies for an additional 4 years, and stop the Republicans who have enabled him all along, before the crisis hit of the pandemic, right? But there was already a crisis of our democracy, a crisis in immigrant communities, a crisis in communities of color. So how can we mobilize our communities to take action, even during this pandemic?
Yeah, and that analysis is so on point about like how we're. To me, it feels like as immigrants, we're used as like political footballs all the time, and this administration has taken that to a new level, and I don't want that to continue for another 4 years. Can't. I can't. I don't think we can take that. So I mentioned friends and family earlier, and to me, that's where it starts. I think that's where we can make the biggest difference, especially in the physical and the organizing quarantine climate we're in right now. I think that reaching our family and friends and organizing with them first is our first and most important step. And so community change and our affiliated sister organization, Community Change Action, are pioneering this effort of relational organizing, which is not a new idea, but it is an idea that is using new tool. And it comes from a long history of Black organizers and civil rights organizers and other organizers, starting with reaching friends and family and bringing them into the movement. And that could mean a lot of things. I mean, in the most immediate sense in 2020, yes, it's the election. But beyond that, I think we can achieve real transformation of our country long term. So what you're seeing on the screen there is a landing page for the Community Change Action relational organizing site, where you can go to learn a bit more about how it works. Download an app called Outvote to get started doing it, and jump on our weekly welcome call every Wednesday at 4 p.m. where you can meet other like-minded folks from around the country, feel a little bit of that togetherness, and learn how to tangibly get involved right now, today, to make a difference this year and beyond.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bartosz. Isaias, you have a particular gift in way of lifting our spirits through your incredible talent with music. I'm wondering if you can share a chant that we can get stuck in our heads as we move through the week and beyond.
All right, sure. So this one we created at Community Change staff retreat. So, what do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. And then the second part is organize to free ourselves. Community change is now. All right. So I'm going to use a little bit of the guacharaca flavor from Colombia, and hopefully it's not too loud. Let's see. Hui, dos, tres, cuatro. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Organize to free ourselves. Community change is now. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it? Now.
Now.
Organize to free ourselves. Community change is now. Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
Thank you so much. That one definitely sticks with you. Community changes now.
That's right.
Justice, freedom, we want it all. So before we sign off, any parting reminders for our viewers? Isaias, let's start with you, and then we'll close with Bartosz.
Yeah, so even though we are indoors and a lot of us feel the lack of mobility, we can still put pressure on our members of Congress and our elected officials through the calls, through the virtual gatherings. I would say if you want to connect with an organization, Immigrant Rights Org, please check out our firm page, where you can find organization all across an immigrant rights organization in any state of the US. Please be involved and join us also in our virtual rallies that we have to await for our Supreme Court on DACA. This is just an example of one that we had this morning, where we had an artist from California, Nicolas, Dulce from the Tennessee Immigrant Rights Coalition, Lorena from Florida Immigrant Coalition, and Cindy from Oregon. And we just create these spaces where we share stories, and we're there for each other as undocumented folks to really share stories, share our power, and find that hope and to continue fighting. So please join us.
Thanks, Isaias. Bartosz.
Yeah.
This is our home. and we're here to stay.
All right, we're going to let that be the last word. I want to thank Isaias and Bartosz for joining us this afternoon for this Facebook Live show. Please keep tuning in. In the meantime, we are going to all keep fighting for justice, fighting for permanent protections, fighting for citizenship, fighting to dismantle an immigration enforcement machine that affects so many people. All of us, people of color, Black, brown, immigrant, are essential in our society. So from all of us at Community Change and Community Change Action, home is here. We'll see you again in 2 weeks for our next episode of People Are Our Economy. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.